Next, we've got a high order bit, well actually show me high order bit. Kevin Lynch, the CTO of Macromedia, is going to make an announcement which integrates the HTML development environment with the Flash development environment and makes it much more accessible so all of us can develop businesses using these tools for Macromedia. So Kevin, take it away.
Welcome back from lunch, and it's great to be here to talk for a little bit about this. And the topic here that I'll be talking about is Flash is your friend with Web 2.0. And the way I was looking at Web 2.0 here, and I think Tim did a great piece on the philosophy here, but in terms of building applications, the exciting thing here I think that's going on is we've got a separation of data and user interface through open data formats and public APIs and NAND feeds. This is enabling a lot of innovation from not only machine to machine, which all the web services excitement's about, but also human to machine interaction, where we're starting to see remixing of applications and new user interfaces built around the data. So I think that is really where all the energy is starting to come from here. And we're seeing certainly a resurgence in HTML for UI, and that's really awesome. And at Macromedia, we love HTML, we make Dreamweaver, and we also think that Flash has a lot to add to this, and the two of them can work together really well. One of the examples of an application that is in alpha right now that I'd like to show you is called MeasureMap from Adaptive Path. And this is an application that actually combines Flash and HTML together using Ajax. I'll just log in here to the application. And this is an application that you can use to track the traffic on your weblog and see what's going on. It's just beautiful. So here we've got a very simple overview of the traffic in my little weblog on the web. It's not as big as many. And it's an HTML page. Now I can also click here and reveal a chart that lets me see information that I can interact with very fluidly. And this bit is in Flash. And these things are able to connect with each other. And that works across their site. So if I click here on the visitors detail, I can see how many visitors came to my blog in that time frame. I can open up this Flash chart. I can change the time frame. And it communicates from Flash to HTML on the page and updates those numbers as well. So you can have bidirectional communication between Flash and HTML here on the page. And so there's a lot of cool insight here you can get into your weblogs. You can view lots of different things like where people came from. I can click here on countries and get an insight onto that. And again, it's got a really rich interface for seeing where people came from to visit my weblog from 87 different countries. I can roll over and see how many visitors from each one. If I want to, I can even zoom in. Because this bit here again is a Flash application, I can see how many from Spain or from Ireland. And so a very rich experience, very fluid and very smoothly integrated. And so this is what we see as becoming a real important trend here in terms of building these applications. And the connection between these is enabled through a free open source bridge you can get to actually connect your JavaScript with ActionScript inside of Flash. Now, this is a really cool application, but many people would say that it actually wasn't very easy to build. Right now, developing applications in Flash is kind of challenging because it was designed originally for creative people to build things like animations. So what we're announcing here today are a number of technologies to make it much easier for developers to create Flash applications and not have to be expert in Flash. And there are a number of things here. One is that there's a new version of the Flash player that we're announcing here that is in alpha right now. And we've been working on a new virtual machine inside of it. It's the engine that executes code. And this virtual machine has been rewritten from scratch. We spent a couple of years on it, and it's far more performant than the current technology, several times faster than what's out there today. And it actually has a just-in-time compiler, so it runs native code inside the player. It also has a programming framework that's in XML. So if you're a developer, you're familiar with technologies like XML, you can write very simple declarative language to build an app in any text editor that you want, as well as use a scripting language that's a standard language called ActionScript, which is the same as JavaScript. They're both ECMA standard languages. And then finally, a new developer tool that we're announcing here today called Flex Builder. That is one tool you might choose to use to create these applications that combines visual editing with code editing, and it's built on Eclipse, which is an open source tool framework. So there's a lot going on here to enable a next generation of rich internet applications to be built for Web 2.0. So I thought it might be fun to actually show you how this stuff works. So this is Flex Builder, and I'm going to actually build an application from scratch here in 5 minutes. So it may be the first time that we've shown code in the conference, so I hope it's not too frightening. So here we have Flex Builder, and this is the XML code you use to create an application. Here I've got an empty application right now. There's nothing up my sleeves. And I'm going to go into design view here, because you can switch between design and code. And I've got an empty canvas. So I'm going to create a little photo viewing application that connects to Flickr and lets me search for photos by different tags. So let's create it. So now, starting from the user interface, as Jason Fried was talking about, and actually I think I'm understaffed by 2 people right now, so I only have myself. But I'll do my best. So we'll first take an area that we're going to drop on here called a panel, and that will create a little layout area for us, and we'll put a label on there so we can create a prompt, and we will say tag. I'm going to create an input area so I can type in what tag we want to search for, and call that input. And then I'm going to create a button here that people can press to search for photos. I'll call that find. Alright, so we've got our user interface here, and I'm going to straighten these things out with a little alignment and make this display a little bit smaller. So we've got our little layout, and actually I'll name our application. I think since I'm building it in Flex and it talks to Flickr, I'm going to call it Flexer. Alright. So Flexer is a simple little application. Now, many of these applications, well, let me show the code first. So I just did that design. Here's the code it generated. Very simple, created a panel with 3 little items on it. So it's very easy to understand this as a developer. Now, as you're creating rich internet apps, these apps tend to have more states locally on your machine. You're not making a round trip to the server every time, the screen's not refreshing every time, and that's great. But as a developer, creating those different states on the client is challenging. So in this tool, there's a really convenient way of doing it. I can basically create the results view of my application by adding a new state, and I will call that results. And now I can merely just change this layout to represent that new state. So I want to make the results view bigger so I can actually see all the photos that come back. So I will make the size of this be 100% by 100%, and we'll drop a little tile list on here so we can display our photos. There we go. And I'll make that as big as the space is here. And now another cool thing is that layouts are tricky to do dynamically sometimes. So there's a capability here in the programming model that lets you automatically stretch things. So I'm saying make that as big as the whole window is, so you can resize it and see more or fewer photos. All right, so we've got our layout here. Now you can see when I click between these 2 different states, I've now designed my application with 2 different layouts. Very easily switch between them and design this way. Now to do that from the application itself, I'm going to make the find button go to the results view. So all I have to do is say current state equals results. All right, let's see how we're doing now. So I'm going to actually run this application that we've been building. So it's compiling right now. You don't need a server or anything. It's all compiled right in the tool. And I'll press the find button, and it goes to the second state. Okay, we're doing pretty good so far. Now, it could look a little bit better than that. There was a really fast jump there. Now, this is Flash, and so you can do all kinds of stuff, of course, with expressiveness. But I'm going to add a very simple transition here so that it's a little bit smoother, called a resize effect. Notice when I'm typing code in here, it's actually predicting what I'm trying to do. And it got it right. I want to do resize effect, and I'll make that just be a plain default resize. And while I'm here, I'm actually going to make the appearance be a little bit better by using CSS. So I did have a designer help me out a little bit with CSS, and so I will add that here with style source equals assets style.css. Okay, and just so you can see what that looks like, here's the CSS file. So it's just standard CSS code that makes the application look a little bit better. So we will run this now. Okay, new app, it's got a cooler background, it's a little bit more rounded. I press the find button, I've got a smooth transition now between the 2 different states. Okay, so now the last step is to actually connect some data to this application, actually go search for some photos, bring them back in and show them in the application. So that's also very simple here. I can do data access, again with a tag. So the tags represent not only UI layout, but also data access functionality. And I can do an HTTP service here, which uses REST, if you know about that. You can also use web services or access Java objects and all kinds of stuff like that. I will set the ID to photo service, because it's going to be the service that gets me photos. And the URL of the service, I'm going to actually copy and paste that. So this URL I went and got from the Flickr website. They have a developer site, which is awesome. So you just go get that there and you can paste it in. So that's a long URL that does the request for some photos and comes back with them. And you can actually parameterize that URL. And so what we're going to do is say tags equals whatever I type in that input box. And to do that here with Flex, I just have to type in input dot. It knows about that because I've declared it already and it senses everything that's going on. So I type in text, it finishes that for me, and now I'm done. So I've now created the data request to get the photos. Now I have to connect those photos up to the user interface somewhere. And we're going to make them appear in the tile list. So I'll go here and set the data provider. And all I have to do is say, well, it comes from the photo service. And in Flex, you use these little curly braces to indicate dynamic data. So in this case, I'm getting whatever comes back from the photo service, and I'm putting it in here. And that comes back with a result. And inside the result is an XML file. And I happen to know what the XML is. It has a response, and some photos, and a photo. And so that photo now will be placed inside the tile list. And I'm going to display them with a little thumbnail view, and I will create a list item renderer thumbnail. Now I created that thumbnail render already, just so I fit in my 5 minutes, so I cheated a little bit. So there's just 2 lines of code we've written already that show an image with a little fade effect, so they look really cool when they commit. Okay, so that is now my application. I think that I'm almost done. Oh, but I have to do the make the button actually request the photos. So in addition to going to show results, I have to actually call the photo service. So I'm going to do that here. Photo service dot send. All right, now it should all be hooked up. I'm going to run my application, and we will see if it works. There we go. So I'm going to type in a keyword here. I like searching for colors of photos. I'm going to look for lime green. So now it's calling out, oh, it worked already. So it called out to the Flickr service, came back with photos, there we go. There's fuchsia for you. I'll search for Web 2.0, so you see there's nothing funny happening here. There's current photos from Web 2.0 coming in. So live Flickr feed data coming into this application, built in 5 minutes. Just imagine what you could do with 50 minutes or maybe 2 hours. So a lot you can do there. So that application is just an example of the power of what you can do now with this technology. And the cool thing is that once you build applications with the Flex technology, it's actually leveraging the Flash player, so you get a very consistent runtime. You just have to develop this thing once, and you don't have to work around all the problems in all the browsers, because you're using the same runtime in all the browsers, and also the same across OSs. And the Flash player is actually more widely distributed than any other client technology out there. It has 98% reach on the web today, and that's actually more reach than any of the web browsers, and actually more reach even than Windows. So the Flash player is the most ubiquitous client technology in the world. And in addition, it's able to be updated very quickly, so you can rely on it, and we can innovate on this technology and get it out to people. And this is a chart that we put together to show the historical adoption of the Flash player back to '98. And you can see the trends for each release of Flash are very similar. There's a very rapid adoption path, up to 80% reach in about a year, and then it gets up to about 98% a little while later. And we're seeing the same thing with Flash 7's over at 90% already. We just released Flash Player 8, and it's starting to be adopted on the same path. And 8.5, which is the update that has the new VM, will also be following this path. So it's a very unique situation here that we can all work on really increasing the expressiveness of the internet and get that out to people in a very, very rapid fashion. Now, Flash and HTML work really great together. And so I encourage you to really think about how you can build your applications combining these. It's not Flash versus HTML or versus Ajax. I think it's Flash plus HTML using Ajax techniques to build Web 2.0 applications. So that's just a buzzword bingo for all of you. I got all posted. So I encourage you to really think about how you can use these things. I wanted to also just end with kind of 8 things you may not realize about Flash. The first one is there's actually a strong open source development community around Flash. You can visit osflash.org as one of them. There's more local storage in Flash than cookies in the browser, much more sophisticated, and also more control for users over that storage. Google indexes Flash content. There's two-way audio-video communication inside Flash. You can do real-time collaborative applications just with the Flash player people have. They don't have to install anything extra, and you can have a really rich communication application. It's accessible. It works with screen readers, so you can have your applications be accessible. It's the most widely distributed video player on the web today, more widely distributed than Windows Media, QuickTime, or anything else. Sockets, for those of you who know what sockets are, we support XML and binary sockets now in 8.5, so you can do basically push applications and bidirectional communication. You're not limited to just request model. And lastly, Flash Player 8.5 has enterprise-level data connectivity now, so it supports message queues and data synchronization and working with JMS on Java servers, and so it's a really robust client now for building not only simple applications like I showed, but very sophisticated business applications. So I encourage you to think about what you can do with this stuff, and we're going to be releasing all of the stuff I just talked about here as an alpha version to start looking for involvement by the community so we can make sure we're all building the right thing here. And it's going to be posted on our site on October 17th on macromedia.com, go Web 2. And I encourage you to check it out. And I will be here along with Sho Kumoto, Chris Sari, Mike Chambers, and a number of others from Macromedia. So we're happy to talk more and answer questions. Thank you very much.
Great. I've never seen an application built in real time at a conference in 5 minutes. That was good. All right. So.